That's what I'm trying to do it through my business page. But I don't know if it'll let me search this.
Yeah, if you go on to This is Derks, it'll say share, and you hit that little caret, and it will say share as you, John, or share as a page you manage, and you would choose Kansas City Hatters. All right, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. I still have our, the main screen up, so nobody can see anything just yet. Everybody, thanks for listening, tuning in, watching, whatever you may be doing, wherever you are right now. You know who I am, Ryan Derks. This is Derks, and I've got a friend with me today, John. And John, I'm going to start right from the top. John is a hat maker here in town, and we've got kind of a unique thing today. So if you're listening, you definitely want to tune in because this is definitely a visual podcast to watch today. And what's unique about this is here in Kansas City, specifically Kansas City, you don't have much choice as far as if you want to buy a hat. If you want to buy a hat like a baseball cap, yeah, you've got plenty of opportunity and plenty of places to choose. But if you want to buy an older hat, kind of like the one I've got on, or maybe even like the half dozen you're about to see today, you are completely limited on where you can go and who you can talk to. So I actually met John not so long ago. I had a project I was actually trying to get, and I'll show more about this one, but this old hat right here, this is a hat from, I don't even know, maybe the 30s, the 40s maybe, from the 40s, a Stetson hat, my grandfather's hat. I wanted to have this remade, and I was searching around for someone in Kansas City who can help me remake this because it was too small. I came across John. John and I met up, and what's really cool about what John is doing is that John is reviving the whole entire, or attempting to revive the entire hat industry, the whole entire fashion style that was classic old hats like this. Not the Royals baseball cap; those have their place. But I'm going to dive right into. John, thank you a ton for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And you know what we're going to start off at is I'm going to start right at your Kickstarter page. So check this out, people. I'm going to type Kansas City Hatters in, and I'm going to show you right from the top John's Kickstarter page, because John's been making hats for a while now, and he's got a Kickstarter to try to raise $15,000 total to start an official, legit hat making business. And here we go. I'm going to start this right from the top because I'm trying to promote this shamefully, unshamefully, as much as possible right now.
Promote away, please.
Heck yeah. So you know what? I'm going to make sure I've got my audio correct. I don't want to go on this whole thing and have the wrong audio. Okay, cool. We've got the right audio here. And let's see it. Yeah, we've got the right audio. Here we go, folks. Listen, check this out right here. So I'm going to put that up like this. And now, John, you're not going to be able to hear it because you don't have the headphones
I believe hats are one of the most personal items of clothing a person can buy.
I'm sure.
They're that touch of style and class that can speak to a person's soul. My name is John Akers, and crafting hats is my passion.
I'll put it up on the TV, though, so at least you can...
As a child, I fell in love with the style of the 30s and 40s. Hats told a story back then, and looking at someone's hat, you could see who they were. That love for hats, it's never left me.
So every one of these hats you're looking at
One day
here
I had an old hat I wanted to get fixed up. The problem was, I couldn't find anyone that worked on hats. So I decided to teach myself how to do it. My research took me deeper and deeper into the art of hat making. I began to obsess over learning everything I could about it. I purchased old hatter's tools off eBay. What I couldn't find, I built myself, and I got started. I was buying old hats, tearing them apart and building them back. Each hat was a new challenge, a new learning experience, and I loved it. See that right there? That's the start of a hat. My hats, they take time. I take the rough, raw felt down to a silky smooth finish. Cut and sew the sweatbands, sew the ribbon on, and even cut and sew my own crown liners. And I do it all by hand. I use only the highest quality rabbit or beaver fur, so you know my hats are going to last. Most of the ribbon I use is vintage, adding a touch of historical class to every hat. My dream is to make affordable, high-quality hats available to everyone. To do that, I need more tools. To make hats using turn-of-the-century techniques as I do, you need crown and brim blocks, and many sizes and shapes to accommodate people's head sizes. I'm asking for your support, so I can purchase blocks and raw materials that will enable me to produce my hats in over 9 different sizes and multiple different styles. I make my hats with pride. I want people to feel the same sense of pride when they put
This is
one on.
a really, really good
Please
video, you know?
help me
Thank you,
share
thank
my
you.
passion with the
Actually,
world.
a gentleman by the name of Kellen Burgess, who runs his own company called Sparrow Pictures here, made this video and did an outstanding job.
Very cool. Yeah, props to him because that was a really well done video. Okay, here we go. John, thank you so much for being here. Right from the top, you got that video from the top. So anybody who watches like the first 60 seconds of this broadcast is going to at least see that part. So now you and I have talked a lot, but I'm gonna play like we haven't because clearly a lot of people who watch or listen haven't met you.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck got you into hats?
Well, you know, it's kind of a happy accident, really. As far as making hats, loving hats, I've loved hats. I mean, all my life. My parents were big into old classic Hollywood, and so when I was a kid, yeah, I grew up watching. I mean, they would take me to the library, and you know, you go and just grab these old black and white movies, and they didn't really like. They didn't like doing a lot of like relevant pop culture, you know, in the late '80s and the '90s and stuff. And so I watched old movies. That's what I grew up on. I grew up watching old musicals and watching Humphrey Bogart movies and watching Abbott and Lou Costello and even just odd shows like the Bowery Boys. I mean, that's just an old school show that was on. I mean, so when you watch those old movies, you know, the style and the fashion back then, men and women alike, you know, you went out, you dressed nice, you had a hat on, and so I just grew up seeing that, and I've just always liked hats since I was a kid.
Okay. Yeah, and you don't see that so much anymore at all in any movie, any pop culture, really, people wearing hats like this.
No, you don't. Not unless, you know, they're doing like a period movie.
Yes, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Like going back in time, like when Johnny Depp did that, you know, like John Dillinger movie and stuff. I mean, there was hats that
There you go.
new old school gangster type movie. There's hats all over in that. So you'll still see them, but you're right. Any type of anything set in modern times, you don't really see hats.
And you know, and like I said at the very onset of this, I was really fortunate to meet you because I've got this hat which I brought over to you, and it's like I said, I don't know exactly which year, but it's roughly in the 40s, right around there. This was my grandfather's hat, and you know, I thought that it got too small for me, and so I brought it to you to see if you could recreate this hat for me. And you said, hey, man, we don't need to do that. We don't need to recreate the whole thing. This is still good condition. We can just expand it. So I spent maybe like an hour and a half over at your shop with you, you know, just shooting the shit and learning about what you're doing. And, you know, before I knew it, steamed it, fit it, steamed it, expanded it, steamed it, expanded it. And then I've put this little, what do you call this?
That's a standard hat stretcher.
Just a hat stretcher.
Yeah.
So I haven't taken this out since I saw you. So in fact, I could probably take it. I'll take it out here and we'll put it on here today and make sure it fits properly. But like, wow, was I happy to meet you. And I showed you the brand in here. Clark the Hatter, Kansas City, Missouri. I think Clark's long since been out of business because you're the only person in Kansas City making hats, custom-made hats for men and women.
As far as I know, the only person in the region.
Yeah, in the whole Midwest region.
Now, I can't say whole Midwest because
Okay.
there's like good out Chicago.
Right,
And there's some
that's fair.
custom hat makers out in Chicago. But I, since I've been, you know, learning how to make hats and kind of in the world of custom hatters, if you will, I've met some guys in Colorado and Utah and out in California and different places, and some of them have been in the hat business since the late 60s. And they know just about everybody in the business that there is to know, even trained a lot of them. I mean, I met one guy out in Utah and he was telling me names of people that I've heard of that have successful hat shops in Tennessee and stuff. And he's like, oh, I trained them 25 years ago.
Very cool.
And he was telling me that he didn't know anybody anywhere close to me that was doing this.
Very cool.
Now, like you said, it existed in the past, but it's closed down.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people say that JFK, when he got elected president, he didn't wear a hat, and that kind of set the stage for men to no longer wear hats, I suppose. And the trend just never has picked back up. You know, people just left it, and it hasn't really come back, like you said, except for period movies. But it got left in the past.
Now, I think it's one of those things. I don't know if correlation proves causation.
Yeah.
But you're definitely around that time period was kind of when hats went out. And I've read some other things where, people said that another thing that happened during that time period was it started to be fashionably acceptable not to wear a hat to a function like an opera or something of high class.
Okay.
And once that started, that kind of lowered the high class retailer people that you always, because you either always had to have a top hat or a Homburg or something to wear to those nice events, started to be socially acceptable not to do it.
Okay.
And obviously I think Kennedy helped too, because it wasn't, he didn't wear, I think all presidents, they had a top hat on for their inauguration, and they had a top hat ready for him to go when he was sworn in as president, and he refused to wear it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he didn't wear one. They usually wore them at the debates as well, and he would never wear one at a debate. And so I think that definitely might have had a big impact as well.
Well, now, okay, so one of the things I've noticed, because I've been picking up hats now for maybe 3 or 4 years. The tough thing about hats is how do you wear them properly? Okay, so I've got this hat on here now. This is more of a winter hat, right? Because I was talking to you about that. Some people wear their hat. Now I probably look like a dummy. I'm looking in the mirror. Some people kind of wear their hat kind of crooked like that. Some people wear it up. Some people have it, down with the brim like this. Is there a right or a wrong way, or do you just kind of wear it what feels best to you?
I'd say there's definitely not a wrong way to wear a hat.
Okay.
One of, and I think I've even written it somewhere, just hats are really one of the most personal things someone can buy. When you go out and you purchase a shirt, you can only wear a shirt one way.
Yeah, true.
You can only wear your right shoe on your right foot. But a hat it's something that, just like you said, you can give the same hat to 10 different people, and they're all gonna handle it different. They're all going to put it on their head a little bit different. Some cock it this way, to the left, to the right. Maybe some people are going to wear it just like you said on the back. Some people will pull it real low on their brow. Everyone, when you start giving somebody a hat and you let them play with it, they immediately subconsciously start making it their own.
Absolutely.
And it's really cool to watch and see. Everybody kind of has something that they think, well, this is what looks best on me.
That is so cool. And the other thing that kind of tricks me about wearing a hat is how do you wear it properly with your outfit? So you can see, today I just have this sweater on with this shirt here. So this goes fine, right? It's a button. Can you wear just a hat with I guess if you know what you're doing, you can just wear a hat with a t-shirt? Does it depend on how formal the hat is? Now,
at risk of upsetting somebody that's a hat.
Some fashionistas.
Yes, because there is, I've actually read, there was somebody, and for the life of me, I can't remember this piece, but I wrote a piece, there's some guy actually did an editorial on hats and what type of hats to wear to functions, and did the whole history, from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and went through when it was fashionable to wear a top hat versus when it was this and when it was that.
Do you happen to have any clue what source that came from, or what code I could search on the Google to pull that up?
Here, hold on. Let me see if I can find the link real quick. And this guy, his consensus was, all right, where do you want me to send this?
Oh, just tell me what it is. I'll pull it up on Google, and I'll share the screen so other people can see it as well.
All right, hold on. Here, can I email you? Can I just send you a link on Facebook Messenger real quick?
You betcha. I'll pull it up right now on Facebook.
All right, I'm going to do it from the business page because I'm already talking to you right there.
You bet.
That'd be easiest. And there you go. I just sent it to you.
Okay.
This was a really fun article that I enjoyed reading, and if I remember correctly, his consensus was that a Homburg, which is kind of similar to what you have right there.
My grandfather's hat.
Yes, but a very dark blue Homburg was the way to go for high fashion events such as opera. And then when you're talking about tuxedos, you can have a tuxedo with tails and without tails, right?
Yeah.
And so they say that a top hat should be worn with a tuxedo with tails.
A top hat should be worn with a tuxedo with tails.
The tails, yes.
Okay.
Whereas if you have no tails, then you need to go with a Homburg.
So a top hat is a flat top. Is that right? Is that what makes a top hat a top hat?
The top hat is like the Abraham Lincoln hat.
Yes. You're right.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. So here we go, and I'll put that on the TV there, a tip of the hat, formal headwear. This is at the Black Tie Guide.
Yes.
So yeah, this guy's got.
And it's a really fun article. But really, to go back to your original question, hats can really be worn with anything.
Okay.
Now, there's such a wide range of hats that I would say, just from your eye, there's certain hats, like maybe if you had a black hat with a silk shiny, band on it and stuff like that, like you're not going to put that on with a tank top and shorts and flip-flops. It would look out of place.
Yeah.
But certainly there are hats and hat styles that can be dressed down.
Okay.
Take, for instance, Ashley, you don't have to go anywhere. I'll go grab it.
Okay.
I have a hat that I asked my brother. He was kind enough to let me borrow it. And my brother is a musician, very talented guy, and hangs out up on college campuses and stuff a lot. And so he wanted something that was dressed down.
Okay.
And so this is beaver felt. This is the exact same color.
Now hold that up right about
yes,
here, and we'll get that right on the camera. Oh, perfect.
This is the exact same color fabric as the one that I'm wearing now.
Okay.
And the one I have on now, as you can see, I mean, it's way more dressy.
Yeah, a little more formal
than this one is. And so it was just in the way I styled it. I added some leather. I put a buffalo coin on it. I distressed it.
Yeah.
I kind of used fire and ash from my fireplace and some different stuff to give it more of a, this hat is more of a style piece, right?
Okay. And now that would be a much more casual hat. You could wear that with jeans and a t-shirt, no problem.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Much more casual. So it really just depends. You can get a hat to literally go with really any style you want.
Okay, very cool. Now I'm going to show people. I'm going to put the mic down for a second. I'm going to take this stretcher out.
Now you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I got really excited when you brought me this hat. I love hats with a story. And I could have, like when you asked me to recreate it, I could have recreated that hat for you. But it wouldn't have meant anything as much, it wouldn't have meant anything to you like it means to you now because it was your grandfather's hat.
Yeah, look at that. Fits perfectly.
And it looks great.
And now for folks at home, you can kind of see, let's see here. Okay, so here's the hat. It fits much better today. When I went to go see John, it was like way up here. I just couldn't get it to go down. But he totally fixed it. Now check this out. This is a hat made by Stetson back when hats were right in their prime. This was a very finely made hat. Now you can see it's nice brown. It's got this nice brim here that's also, what do you call this style where you put the ribbon around the brim as well?
It's called a brim binding.
It's got the nice brim binding here. You can see on the inside it's got the nice leather band. It's got the silk bottom with the stamp and all of this. And now check this one out here that John is making. Now this one's a little more casual, but John's doing the same. He's got the skills and the talent. He's making the same exact thing, the leather binding, the silk inside. This isn't just like a little hobby, dinky little thing you're doing. These are like some really, really nice hats.
Thank you. And that it's funny you bring up the liners. For me, when you go a lot of places and you get a lot of hats, especially ones that are geared towards millennials, you're hard pressed to find one that comes with a liner.
Okay.
And it's almost become acceptable to make a fedora without putting a liner in it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I know nobody else sees it except for you, really, or anyone else that you show it to.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's really important to make a product that's aimed to be just as elegant to the customer as it is to the people who are going to see it.
Yeah.
And for me, that becomes what's on the inside of the hat.
Inside and outside.
Yeah, because when you look at it, when you look at it and you see beauty on the inside as well as the outside, it makes that item, that hat in particular, feel just better to you, the wearer.
Yeah, you feel more confident when you know you're walking around with a really, really nice handmade, one-of-a-kind thing. Now, we're going to go over in just a second, and like I told people listening, this is going to be a very unique podcast because I'm going to move the camera, and we're going to get a lot of interactive. He brought so much cool stuff to show exactly how this is done. Before that, though, you were talking about the silk liner on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
When I was sitting there at your place the other day, I showed you I've got like this Gurin Brothers hat here. Mm-hmm. Now we're not going to talk trash on the competition.
No,
that would just be inappropriate.
I actually own Gurin Brothers hats myself.
I love Gurin Brothers. So if you don't know, here's Gurin Brothers. That's their logo, that little castle there. No liner on the inside.
Mm-mm.
But now Gurin Brothers is a respectable hat company. They make really nice hats. But you told me a little secret that I didn't know about Gurin Brothers, is that they kind of mass produce all of their hats in a factory that mass produces hats for other companies as well. So although they're sending their designs and stuff like that, it's not. I always thought I was getting a pretty unique, one-of-a-kind hat, but I may be mistaken in that. Like, what's the backstory there with Gurin Brothers, like where their hats are coming from and such?
Well, I don't know if 100% of their hats, but I do know that some of their hats are made in out of a factory called Bowman Hat Company, which produces like the Kanga hats and some Indiana Jones replica hats. You go to they have a website, and when I went there, in this memory, so about 6 months ago, I mean, they produce, I want to say, about 9 different brands of hats, and then various different ones.
Okay. Yeah, so don't be fooled. You might think but you know what, even so, considering where we are with the selection we have in 2017, I'm still super happy with Gurin Brothers. Plus, they've got a really cool, what's that? They've got like a frequent buyers program. I think you buy 10 hats or 11 hats and you get one free.
Yes. Now, I think they only honor that, though, if you go into their shops.
Yeah, right. You have to be in there for them to get you on their server.
Yeah, but there is, like, I remember, I think I bought one hat from them over the phone because they didn't have it online, and I bought it out of the San Diego shop, and the San Diego shop sent me a card with it. So,
okay.
So I guess maybe if you did it that way, you could always get your stamps. But
going forward, you and I need to team up because I'm at like 6 or 7 hats. So if we buy some hats going forward, we should team up so we can get that next hat free a little sooner.
I still have it in my wallet. Yeah, you can still you'll get it if they send it to you.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, but one thing also is almost all their hats are made from wool felt.
Right. This one here is wool.
Yeah, which I don't do. I make all the hats out of rabbit and out of beaver fur, and I'll get into like the differences between those a little later.
Yeah, let's actually, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. Let's start off. I'm gonna grab this camera here. Now this is gonna be weird, folks. Bear with me because I haven't done this before. I'm just gonna kind of hold this camera and bring it over by where you are. So let's see your setup. Walk me through a little bit here, and let's just start from the very beginning.
All right. Well, you know, if we're gonna start from the very beginning of me was a sweatband.
Okay.
And oddly enough, a Gurin Brothers hat.
Okay, there you go.
I had a Gurin Brothers hat, and they all come with, well, not all of them, but most of them come with a cloth sweatband liner.
Right. That's what I've got here as well.
And I wanted a leather sweatband in it, and I couldn't find anyone that replaced sweatbands, and I searched, and eventually I thought, well, you know what? I'm just gonna learn how to do this myself. And that's really where it started. Was I was learning how to replace a sweatband in a hat.
Okay.
And you know, you start pulling on a thread.
And then you become Kansas City Hatters. Yeah, exactly. And then you become the only Hatter kids, professional Hatter.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of research. It comes down to this. So what happens before I get? I don't know. Am I good?
Yeah, you're cool. I can see you right perfectly.
Okay. What happens before I get to a hat is a hat starts out kind of like this. Right?
Okay. Right.
And what they're doing here is they're taking fur from an animal, be it a rabbit or a beaver, a mink, wild hair. When you see something where it says, oh, well, this is wild hair versus this is rabbit, the difference there means that wild hair is its fur that was harvested from rabbits, but they were kind of essentially free-range rabbits, if you will, so actually wild rabbits.
Okay.
Versus something that is advertised as rabbit fur, that means that it came from rabbits where it was farmed.
Okay.
So, and really the big difference there is they can control the quality in farmed rabbits. Wild hair, they can't really they can't control the food, the quality of that.
And you kind of blew my mind when you said that rabbit and beaver fur are the 2 primary types of hats that are pressed. You press it with like a metal press, like a hydraulic press. Is that how they get it so tight then to become?
Yeah, they what they do is it's the undercoat. So it's not, when you think of an animal,
right, the undercoat.
It's not the over.
And that's what I was gonna say.
It's that undercoat that's closest to the animal's skin, and they in factories they actually have machines where they'll get it the raw like this, and they have these big combs, and it combs it, and it combs it out and gets all the because of muck and stuff stuck in it. Gets it real pure, and then they run it through several processes. The felting process is achieved with hot water and pressure. These fibers are just like the fibers on your hair. And when you see like the Pantene commercials and it shows like your hair is kind of scaly.
Oh yeah, that small little graphic they show.
Yes.
Okay.
It oversimplified, of course, but that's kind of what it is. And the heat and the moisture, those scales, if you think about it, they kind of open up on those hair follicles, and then they mash them together.
Okay.
And then when they cool, those scales lock back down, and that's how this joins together to form this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now when you get it, it doesn't look like that. Obviously, it looks like a very large, just like flat sheet of felt, right? And then you put it on these molds here, where you'll warm it up and then mold it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I get it, it's real rough looking. They call it a hat blank, and then I take it. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'll either measure your head to get your head measurement, or you can bring me a hat that you like, and this is called a compass type measure, and this is a special tool to measure the size of a hat.
Okay.
And once I know the size of your head will correlate to one of these blocks.
And as we discovered, and I told you, I warned you, I've got a huge head. You have to order a special block for the hat you're about to make me.
Not because you have a huge head.
Yeah, I can't help it.
No, it was the style. But yeah, these blocks, right? They correlate to the size of your head, and this will give me the basic shape. Now, I don't know how well you can see, but each block, there's different styles of blocks. So each block is kind of different in how domed is it on the top, how straight are the sides. There's a lot more to it than just the head size of the circumference, because the basic shape, this is going to give you a basic shape, and then from that basic shape, it allows me by hand to craft all of these different shapes that you see in the hat.
Okay.
So anyway.
Yeah, so then if it's like you said, a top hat or a bowler hat or any of these other dozens, every block is unique in how you're going to form that style of hat.
Exactly. And anyway, what I'll do is I'll take the felt, I'll steam it. So I'm gonna everything I do is kind of just a continuation of the felting process.
Okay.
So I'll steam it. I'll pull it over one of these blocks, make sure it's nice and tight, and then I'll take some cord, which is basically rope, tie it around it, and pull that rope all the way down to the bottom. And then I'll take this felt and I'll start to finish it out. So I'll take sandpaper, and this is really the most time-intensive part of making a hat is the outer finish of it.
Okay.
And
smoothing it down from a rough fabric down to a very smooth finish, like the ones we have on right now.
Exactly, and it can take, depending on how big the hat is and how fine you want the hat, it can take about 5 to 5.5 hours just for one hat.
Okay.
I mean, really, really just going down in stages, because if you take it down too quick, you can actually ruin the felt. So it's in stages. I sand it a little bit. I use irons, which over here. I use classic irons, so an old 7-pound sad iron that I heat up on an iron plate. And
you were using that in that Kickstarter video as well.
Yeah, so basically after I'll sand, I'll kind of spritz the wool with water, not the wool, but the felt with water, and then I'll iron it some more, and I do it directly on the block.
Okay.
And the reason I'm doing that is, like I said, it's a continuation of the felting process. So I am trying to make this hat shrink and just get as tight as I can to this metal form, which will make that felt tighter. And the tighter the felt is, the smoother the finish you can get.
Okay, very cool. And now I guess I'll just ask you now, because we were going over this with the hat you were telling me about. There are different like different weights of paper that you can buy. There are different almost weights of felt that you can choose for your hat to be made of, right?
True.
And that's kind of like having a very flimsy hat versus having a very solid, sturdy hat.
Yes, like this right here, this particular, this is dress weight felt.
Okay.
And so this, you make your fedora, the Homburg that you're wearing right now, the hat that I'm wearing right now would be made out of a dress weight felt. And it's designed to be lighter, feel softer in your hands, be way more pliable, versus something like this, which this is Western weight felt.
Oh, yeah.
And it's more like cardboard. It's
that's pretty sturdy.
It's about twice as thick as one of these. When you put them on a scale, it weighs. I mean, this weighs just under 4 ounces, whereas this will weigh just under 9 almost.
And that's the one that you're modeling for mine right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
yeah,
We're gonna get into that more here later.
I
So
just got this today, so this will be yours when it is finished. Like I said, I have to order a special block for your noggin. So it'll come. That comes out of Colorado. There's a great gentleman out there that does that for me. Okay, where was I? All right, so once you've got it all sanded down and it's nice and smooth, one of the things you'll do is you'll take this tool. This tool is called a foot toliker, all right? There's a wood one and you have a metal one. I use the metal one on all my darks, and I use the wood one on my lights.
Okay.
Because this metal one, no matter how much you clean it, if you started rubbing this on a light-colored hat, it will mark it so fast.
Makes sense. Okay, makes sense.
And what this tool does is when the felt is pulled over the block, you'll run it along the felt at the base of the block.
Okay.
And what that does is it helps you set what they call the break line. So where your hat actually, from the crown, breaks out into the brim.
Okay.
That's what that tool does. After I've done that, there's a lot of drying. So after I've done a lot of these processes, I'll kind of sit and let the felt dry and set. And then I'll use this tool. This tool right here is called a rounding jack. And this is a replica. This isn't old. Like some of these tools, like this one and this one and this one, they're actual old hatter's tools that I've had to find on eBay or Etsy or message boards. And
yeah, that's another thing that I was blown away. None of this stuff was readily available, right? You had to actually search the internet, the dark corners of the internet, to find all these tools and put them into one shop of yours.
There is not one place that you can go. You can't just go Google, how do I make a hat from start to finish?
Yeah.
It took me, months, and guys that come before me, that have been doing, they're very protective. It's almost like not like magicians. Magicians where, they're not just going to give their secrets away to anybody, if you will. So a lot of this craft is held very tight to the vest by guys that know it. And you got to really build up a relationship with them to get them to share their knowledge with you. But that's been fun for me.
And here we are just giving it all away for free.
I'm not giving it all away by any means.
I know.
But this tool right here, it allows you to, it's called a rounding jack, and it allows you to cut the felt on the brim to a certain length.
Okay.
So that's why, you tell me, I think you had told me you wanted a really large brim. You wanted almost
wide
like a
brim.
4.5
Right.
inch brim. So this tool right here will allow me to cut this brim down to the right size.
Okay.
Once I've done that, where I go with it really depends on how I'm going to finish it. For instance, with this hat right here, this hat is kind of a version of the really popular Stetson Stratoliner hat.
Yeah, that's a nice looking hat.
Right? So, also, I don't know if you say it, but those crown liners, I don't buy those from anyone. I cut and sew my own crown liners.
Okay, so again, custom made.
Yeah, which there's almost, even among the hat makers like myself that do this, almost none of them do that.
Okay.
They all buy their crown liners.
Yeah, you're cutting it and you're stitching it all by hand.
Cutting, stitching, yes. I am one of the only people I know that does that part of it.
Okay.
And so for this hat, this hat has a nice curve on the brim. Right? How you achieve that? You do that with a tool that's called a brim flange and a flange stand. And that right here is what these two tools are. So this is your brim flange. And again, just like the crown block, this brim flange correlates to the size of the hat. So however big your head is, I have to get the correct brim flange that fits that hat size.
Okay, makes sense.
Right? This right here is called a flange stand, and it does literally what its namesake is. It holds the flange up. Let's see if I can get it to fit on there again, like it's supposed to be. Where's the other one?
You've got your hands filled over there. It's difficult.
I know. I got to set the mic down.
Okay, no problem.
This thing will be kind of difficult. Hold on one second. All right, there we go.
Okay.
So then what you do is you would take the hat and you would set it inside of here, like so. You cover it with some cloth. and then you iron. You start to iron and steam the brim and set it into this curvature right here. Then I take essentially, I have a homemade sandbagger, which is too big. I couldn't bring it in. I'm sorry. But I basically take a machine that I've kind of built at home that is a copy of something that was in every single custom hat shop anywhere. And that's called a sandbagger. And it's basically just 60 to 70 pounds of sand with a cloth cover on the bottom, and in the real ones you see in hat shops, they actually had a heating filament that went through that piece of cloth and kept the sand hot. And you drop the sand on top of this hat while it's sitting on the flange here, and it really just sets that curvature of the felt.
Okay, so it's just basically a big old weight, and because it's filled with sand, it will take whatever form you ask.
Exactly, because it hugs every single curve.
Okay.
Right. Usually while I'm doing that, because it has to sit in there a while, that's when I will start to cut the sweatbands, which start out like this.
Okay.
And I cut the sweatband to size. So I'll cut it to size. I'll sew it. I'll stitch your bow in the back of it. I'll stamp it with my logos, the Kansas City Hatters.
Okay.
And if it's a beaver hat, it gets my signature stamp.
Now, why would somebody want a beaver hat as opposed to a rabbit hat, or vice versa?
All right, so most hats you're gonna get are wool, right? So you got wool, you got rabbit, you got beaver, and then the rabbit and the beaver, you can get those in blends. Now, this is gonna be kind of a long answer.
Hey, that's exactly what we're doing this for. Absolutely, there's no time limit.
Okay, so rabbit and beaver fur have a long time been kind of the standard and where most hats are made out of, and beaver fur being the king of those for a long time. The reason for that is they have a longevity that's unmatched. It's the reason that you can have your grandfather's hat on your head that he bought in the late 40s, early 50s, and it looks like it's brand new. Because when you buy a high quality hat made out of rabbit or beaver fur, and it's taken care of properly, and you take it back to someone like me every 2 years or so to clean it and make sure it's really taken care of, and you store it properly, it can last a lifetime, and a lifetime over. I mean, some of these hats, like this hat, this was a cowboy hat that somebody took care of, and I took it and I turned it into something completely new. The felt just has a life that you can't get out of like wool. Other things that are kind of nice about it is it insulates. So that's why felt is kind of more of like a fall and winter hat. You get rabbit and beaver fur, and it's really gonna serve you well in colder climates. It'll hold the heat in. Rabbit and beaver fur are naturally water repellent. So they're not waterproof, but they're water repellent.
Okay.
Beaver fur obviously being better at that than rabbits. You can walk out in a rainstorm in a beaver hat and be totally fine. Now, I mean, if you stood outside in the rain for like 45 minutes, that water's going to soak through it. And if you did that often enough, you would start to have some maybe distortion in the shape of it. But in the weather here in Kansas City, you buy a beaver hat, you can wear it and don't have to worry about whether it snows, whether it rains. It can handle it, and it's not going to hurt or destroy the felt.
Very cool. Okay, so that makes sense, and those are the differences between the furs and why you might want some versus the other. And
and wool obviously is almost none of those things. Wool doesn't retain heat very well. It's not water repellent, so you can't wear them outside in the rain, and it kind of actually destroys it. Wool does not last as long. If you have a wool hat and you wear it a lot, it's probably gonna last 3 to 5 years. Wool is really hard to restore and to change its shape. So like I was talking about with beaver, you can't bring me a wool hat and I can't really recreate it into something else.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just there is beaver and rabbit. It's a really nice quality, and really when you start adding the price tag to it, some people, I've had a lot of people ask me, well, John, why is it you charge $220 for a rabbit hat and for dress weight, and why is it you charge $350 for a beaver hat? That's kind of an expensive price tag. When they say, well, I could go online and I could Google beaver hat. I mean, I think I did that just the other day, and I found a Stetson that they were they were advertising it as a beaver hat, and it was like $298.
Okay.
But when you go down and you look at the specs of it, it was 3X beaver. And anytime there's an X on it, that means it's blended. And the X system, and I'm not trying to pick on Stetson, they make some great hats, but I think
Sure.
I think their X system kind of goes up to 300.
300X
is if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And so a 3X beaver hat basically means that you're buying a rabbit hat with a sprinkle of beaver.
Okay.
So I mean, the X's don't even necessarily correlate to with the percentage of beaver that's in the hat, because that hasn't been standardized. Any hat maker out there can set their own X system. So I could just, there's no standard. I could create my own. I could say, oh, well, I sell a 10X hat that is literally the factory could like pinch some beaver over the giant vat, and that's my 10X.
Wow.
So when you kind of, and I obviously, like, an average hat consumer isn't going to know that, but what I do as far as the custom work and the fact that I use either 100% rabbit, 100% beaver. The only time I get into mixes is with my Western weights, and those mixes are either 50% beaver rabbit or 100% beaver.
Right, and mine's a mix, right?
Yours is a mix.
Right.
Yours is a 50-50.
Okay.
And so I have, you know exactly what you're getting. Not to mention it's the customization. So really the closest thing to market value for what I do is there's a company that does similar to what I do, and their cheapest hat's $650.
Ooh wee.
And their average hat's $1,000.
Wow. Okay.
So you're getting. I think everyone should have a nice hat for a quality price.
Yeah.
So I'm charged for my hats that I do. I mean, I'm charging just under 50% of market value, just about for what you're getting with my hat.
Yeah, right. It's not made in a factory. It's made every single piece of it by hand by you personally.
Exactly, which
Okay.
it gives you as a consumer a lot of freedom too, because it's not like you're walking into a store thinking, man, I hope I can find something I like.
Yeah, right.
You come to me and I can make exactly what you want.
Well, that's what was really cool about you and I sitting down the other day, is that I was just sitting there kind of like, okay, this is what I have in mind, and I kind of want it to be kind of like that. And you're just pulling hats down off the shelf. I'm like, okay, is this what? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's what I've got. I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to think of the brim. Like, I kind of got this in mind. And you pull a few. What about? Yeah, I like that. And then like, here we go. Now it's like a very, very basic piece of it, and I'm already kind of like excited because like that's pretty much what I was expecting in my mind, the look and the size and the color. So yeah. It's not like I'm just online shopping or walking into a store, flipping through their catalog or whatever, trying to find one that I enjoy. Like, that's very cool. That's the part of the cool thing of working with you.
Thank you. That's actually one of the reasons I love doing what I do. Is I love being able to craft unique hats.
Absolutely.
I really like it. All right, so
we left off at the sandbagger. You sandbag the hat for a while, and then
Yes.
you'll stitch the leather band and the silk piece into the top, I believe.
So then after that, I will actually put the leather sweatband in.
Okay.
And I hand sew those in.
Right. Just like in the Kickstarter video.
Just like in the Kickstarter video. Now there is, when hats were popular, they made all kinds of sewing machines that did literally specific jobs on hats. They don't make them anymore, but I'm searching for them. And there's an old singer that actually sews sweatbands into hats. And eventually, when I find one, it'll probably cost me a pretty penny, but I will buy it, and then I'll be able to actually machine stitch those into a hat, which won't necessarily make them more secure by any means. The only thing it'll do is it'll save me an hour of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which when you're talking about how much time one of these hats make, saving 1 hour of time could mean a lot when you add it up. So then after this, and usually when that happens, while this is sandbagging too, I would have cut the sweat, and I would have usually cut and sewed the crown liner. It'll go in last, right? But after it comes out of here, then it's time to start dressing it out. So I'll usually I'll shape the general shape of the hat, and I do that by steaming the felt. Steaming the felt loosens those fibers again and allows me to move it around, and I do this all by hand.
Yeah, now show some here on the camera the other hats you've got, so you've got the top design of that hat, which you can see has a very deep groove. You've got that hat which has a deep groove, but it's a little more.
It's
takes
more
up
of
a little more.
crown, similar to what this hat
There you
is.
go. Yeah, yeah. It takes up a little more of the entire interior part.
Yeah, you got a center dent hat.
Yeah, that one's just a dent down right down the middle.
Yep. This is another style of center dent.
Yep. Yeah. There you go.
You got kind of more of a Western feel.
Yeah, so that one's got that Western. It's got the three dents the whole way down of the hat.
Like
Absolutely.
it's cattleman's crease.
Okay. Okay.
And then this would be more of just your standard teardrop.
There you go. Okay. So again, that's what's cool is that you and I were able to, again, you just pulled a ton of hats out and you're like, which design do you like? Like, I kind of like this one. So again, a cool thing. It's the hat, again, I keep going back to this, but I'm very excited because it'll be the only hat in the entire world that'll look like that once it's all done and finished.
Yeah. And so I'll start to get this general shape. That way I kind of know when I'm starting to put this ribbon on, I want to make sure that it's centered.
Mm-hmm.
When it used to be that actually I would leave the hat open crowned or this shape, the shape of the block, and the very last thing I would do would be shape the hat. And and what happened, I think, at least one time, is I sewed everything on, and then when I shaped the hat like it was supposed to be, the ribbon here was just off center, just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
And it drove me absolutely insane. I have never sold that hat. That hat's still sitting in my house because it's slightly off. I mean, my wife didn't notice a difference. Most people probably wouldn't notice it, but I knew it was there, and it drove me nuts. So that's why I started making this first, so that way I knew that when I sewed that on, it was in the center.
Oh, makes sense. Makes sense.
So then I'll style the ribbon, and then the ribbon again that comes down to personal choice. This is a very thin ribbon. It's just under a half an inch, versus this, which is just under 2 inches. This is kind of an inch and 3/4.
Okay.
This is an inch and a half.
Okay. Okay. Looks like the hat you have on is about an inch and a half as well.
Yes, inch and a half. Inch and a half is about your standard width.
Okay.
Now, if you're going for like a 30s style, that's going to be more kind of like that hat you have sitting there right now.
The whitish Gordon.
Yeah, the cream one. That one's got about just over kind of a 1 inch band.
Okay.
And that's a very popular look.
Now, why did you say 30s? What? How did hat styles change that significantly? That if you were to just go to an old antique store, you could kind of identify maybe like what generation or something.
There's guys that actually, you bring that up. There's guys that they've made their business on that. Where all they do is deal in antique hats. Okay. And if you talk to one of those guys, they know way more than I could ever. I mean, it's so nuanced that they can look at a hat and they can almost tell you the exact year it was made, down to small details like, oh, well, the size tag is this shaped, and they only made the size tag. Stetson only made the size tag, and it was this shape from this year to this year. And I mean, it's down to a science with them. But for the most part, yes, hats, like almost any other fashion, they followed trends.
Okay, makes sense.
Like let's say, like the easiest one would be, the 30s. They tend to have thinner bands, so 1 inch dressing bands, and things like brim bindings were like this, where the brim binding and the ribbon on top were the same color, but they contrasted the felt.
Right.
Whereas more of like a 50s look would be more like this hat, where the brim binding matched the felt of the hat as close as possible, and the ribbon up top was a different color.
Wow.
Okay. So I mean, it's still a hat. It's still a ribbon, it's still brim binding, but the way that they did colors kind of followed a pattern, just like any other fashion trend does.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. So I'll cut and I'll style that, and I can do different bows. This is a kick bow, which I don't know how tight you can pull in on that.
Yeah, let me just zoom in on it. Yeah, you sit there and I'll zoom it to you so you can just stay comfortable. There you go, perfect. Okay.
That's called a kick bow.
Okay.
Right there. This is called a shark gill, and it's very time intensive to sew. It's all sewn with hidden stitches, and it's there's 2 stitches.
That's kind of like a multi-layered type of thing there. Okay.
There's multiple stitches in each one of those folds,
okay,
and they're all hidden stitches. so you can't see the stitch. Similar to this hat, this bow is held on with hidden stitches. So if you were actually looking at it this close, you can't see any stitches. It just looks like the bow's kind of sitting on the side.
Yeah,
of the
you know,
hat.
I noticed that about the hats I've got is that they do on the corners of each bow is where they stitch it in, so it doesn't move at all. Just it's stitched down.
And that's definitely a style. I do that. Like this hat has visible stitches. Some people like to see the stitches and some people don't. I mean, I can do hidden stitches on request,
Okay.
but it does take a lot longer to do a hidden stitch.
Sure.
As opposed to a visible stitch. This is more of like kind of a Western look. A lot of Western hats will have this bow style on here, and so it's just kind of fun messing with ribbon and finding different shapes.
Now tell me again about the story about all the ribbon you have. Didn't you say that all the ribbon you have is like last run ribbon that nobody will be able to find this stuff again because it's, as we went over earlier, hats just aren't in style anymore. People just aren't wearing them and making them enough that these ribbon companies are no longer making this ribbon. So you now have a huge stock inventory of ribbon that isn't being made anymore.
That's correct. The ribbon on a hat, you have to do something called swirl the ribbon, which means you're going to lay the ribbon out and use an iron, and you iron it kind of into a U shape.
Okay.
Now, your standard, you go down to Hobby Lobby or really any store and you buy grosgrain ribbon, but it's spelled with G-R-O-S, G-R-A-I-N. You don't pronounce the S.
Okay.
That's your standard ribbon that they make. You tie presents up with and different things like that, and it's all made out of polyester. Now, because it's cheaper and it gives you the same shine or sheen that, say, like this ribbon, it's got a nice shine to it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, right.
And all these old ribbons, they were made out of a blend of cotton and rayon. And the cotton and rayon will swirl, whereas polyester, it will not swirl. So when you wrap it around a hat, it'll pucker. It won't hug the hat as you wrap it.
Okay.
That's why you have to turn it into that U shape, because as the hats, they kind of bend up a little bit. It's not completely flat. So you kind of have to have a slight curvature on that ribbon to get it to lay flat. And like you said, the Schiff Ribbons was the last company in America anyway that made a cotton and rayon that you could buy.
Okay.
And they closed down in 2016. I believe mostly to mismanagement, but I mean, I'm not heard. That's just what I've heard. And so there's no local source to get that ribbon. So I have to find antique ribbon. I do a lot of ribbon hunting, and it comes out to stuff like this. Ribbon it's old, what they call old new stock. So this was made in probably the 30s or 40s, and then it sat somewhere and never been used. And I'll find it from retailers. There's antique ribbon retail people you can contact. You can find them on eBay and different stuff. And so, so I have a lot of, I brought some other rolls of it, but most of the ribbon, almost all the ribbon I use on my hats comes from somewhere that I found some antique stuff. So that means for me, when I make a hat, I might not necessarily have like this one right here. This happens to be antique ribbon from France, from 1930s France. And the guy that has it, I bought the rest of his roll that he has. So there's only 20 yards of it left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
At least 20 yards of it that I know of.
Yeah, that you know of.
Yeah. And so, it makes it fun that way, and it can make a hat kind of special. Like this hat, that ribbon that's on the brim binding and up here on the crown, that's antique ribbon that is from the 30s as well. So, you're getting a hat that's personally styled and has that touch of the past that comes with it, which I think is really cool.
And so so now you've got the ribbon sewn on.
Right.
You've got any extra little the brim binding if you do that.
I do that, and I do that all by hand as well. That's not with a machine. I hand stitch the brim bindings on as well.
And so the brim binding, if you can't tell, on this thing, there's brim binding here on this one as well. It's that fabric that's on the brim. And like he says, John is hand sewing that as well. So again, that takes time. And so now that I'm looking at the video of myself here, I've got kind of a double bow on this one here.
Yeah, you have a kick bow as well.
And what this kick bow? It just doesn't look like it's hidden stitching. So anyhow, okay. So then, is the hat done?
Yes. Once I stitch it in, once I stitch this on, or stitch the brim binding if it has one, then I'll put the crown liner in.
Okay.
And the last thing I will do is, if the customer's local, is I will have you actually come do one last sizing.
Okay.
And if it's good to go, then I will stitch the crown liner in, which is yet another difference that almost no one does. You go anywhere and they use felt glue to secure the crown liners on the inside, which there's nothing wrong with that per se, but for me, I don't want glue to touch my hat.
Yeah, I understand that.
It to me it's one of those details you'll never see, because it'll be stitched in here underneath the sweatband. You'll never see it unless you pull the sweatband up. But it's that attention to detail that, for me, I think makes a high quality product truly high quality.
Absolutely. And now, wow, got this tickle here. Now, can we see the wheel that you brought in here?
Yeah. Okay.
Because you were telling me that when you were on which news channel was it you were doing the program on?
KSHB. I was on their morning show, Kansas City Live, and Joel Nichols interviewed me. He did it. He was so good. He asked me we had some chance to talk for about 5 to 7 minutes before we interviewed, and he really engaged with me, really nice, and asked me some really great questions.
That's really cool that he didn't just just let me come over and help you.
Yeah.
He didn't just have you on, come in, get you on, get you off, that kind of thing. He was genuinely trying to learn all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool. Now, a lot of these tools, like I said, if I couldn't find it, I had to try to build it, or at least something that I could use that would work. So this is my finishing table, and then I'll talk about some of these older tools, which will happen here, because these things are cool.
Okay.
All right, so essentially, I built this finishing table, and what it allows you to do is, this is how I actually sand the hat. So I'll put my crown block on here, and I'll have my felt on here, and then I can actually take this and turn it with one hand, and while I'm turning it, I have my sandpaper, and this allows me to sand the hat and get it sanded down nice and even.
From that rough felt down to a nice smooth finish. Okay.
And then I use this side of the table right here with this curve cut out on it, and I use this to sand the underside of the hats.
Oh, right, okay.
Like that. So that's what that does, and it's really cool. It's on just a regular tool that you would use for wallpapering. Just like a general step up. But it's really fun. This tool right here is called a brim shackle. And these tools are, can you see that on the camera?
Yep.
These tools are amazingly hard to find. And this is an actual antique one, as you can see. And what this tool allows you to do is it allows you to put the curl in a brim like this one has.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that's how, and you heat this up. I use like a Bunsen, like not a Bunsen burner, but an actual a hot plate that's used for like campfire cooking and stuff.
Okay.
And so I'll heat those up on a campfire, and then you kind of wet the edge, and you sit there and you move it around just like an old school iron to get this curve, and you set it to get it nice and even. And these tools come in different sizes, and I don't know, just for me, some of these tools they just, when you're doing something like I do, where you're doing it the same way they did it over 100 years ago, I just think it's so cool to find a tool that came from that era.
Yeah.
So I mean, how many hats before me has it done that curl?
And another thing about that tool, bring that a little closer to the camera, because you can tell that is not a tool that was made in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, just up a little bit right there. You can tell that is an old tool. It's got a wooden handle.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can see that that tool has seen some work and seen a lot of hat making. That's really, really cool.
I mean, it's just really cool.
There you go.
Old tools on some of these things.
And again, you say you found a lot of these, you had to go search the corners of the internet to find these different parts. And if I remember, you said you didn't find these all at once. You just had to keep looking and slowly building up this whole toolbox, right?
Yes, it took. Let's see. I think I'm gonna come sit back over here.
Yeah. Come. You know, bring my hat mold over here, and we'll sit here and keep talking. So this was awesome. I think we got a really cool explanation, like kind of show and tell on how this all works.
Yeah, and the whole process. I mean, I've tried to do as quick as I could. The whole process takes
no
about 2.5 days per hat.
Okay, so 2.5 days. That's not so long even. It seems, I guess to somebody like me who has no idea what I'm talking about, it seems like 2.5 days is really fast. But that's probably actually not that fast, considering you're doing it all by hand. Mm-hmm. That is pretty fast, considering you're doing it all just by hand. So, I mean, yeah, that's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And again, like it's not like this stuff. The guys at Gurun Brothers, they can make these hats with machines. Do you know? Did the Gurun Brothers at those factories make it with these tools, or do they have kind of like a mass production type of tools they're using now?
It's mass production.
Okay. Okay.
Now, what's actually kind of cool about the Bowman Hat Company that makes their hats is they're one of the only factories in the United States that actually makes their own felt in-house as well.
Okay.
So I mean, they're they're getting it just like, they're doing the whole process. So they're getting that raw fur like I showed you. They're turning it into the actual felt blanks.
Wow.
And then blocking it out. Now they use on my Kickstarter page, I have a picture of it.
Oh, okay. Let's go there. I've got it. Copy. Okay. I'm going to share that screen here with everybody.
All right, and scroll down, if you don't mind.
All right. Let's see here. Oh, okay. I'm all the way down.
FA on campaign.
Campaign. There we go. Got to click that link. Usually it's already showing that.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's see here.
All right, right there.
Okay.
So they use.
What are we looking at here?
All right. So what you're looking at there, the first, the one that kind of looks like a cone.
Okay, right here.
Yeah, all right. That's what they use to set the basic shape of the felt.
Okay.
Right. So they set it into those cones, and then those cones they kind of turn it into several different sizes of cones. But anyway, as it goes in, as you can see, there's a top hat sitting right next to it, and then a bowler, and it's got that pressurized.
Oh yeah, I can see the form. This middle one's a top hat.
And so
you
literally
can kind of see right there, and then I can see how this one here. Okay, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, so they have, in big companies, they have rows and rows and rows of just those things. And they'll have it, some of them, like the bigger ones, Stetson, they'll have one particular style of their cowboy hat, and it'll be in a big row, and it's that exact cowboy hat, but in multiple different sizes. And they just take felt off, and they put it over forms like that, right down, and then they pull a lever, and the top of that comes down, and you see all the hoses. The hoses are shooting hot steam.
Okay.
So it shoots hot steam in the felt, which loosens it, just like what I would do. But then it heats and heat presses it into that shape.
Okay.
So they're taking this. They're taking, and they're just doing it in one shot, just, and they're kind of carbon copy printing these hats out.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I guess I've never seen a photo like that before. So let's see. Okay. Now here are a lot of the molds that you've got at your place.
Yes.
We saw some of those a moment ago.
Yeah. And one thing you'll notice when you look at that picture is there's I think there's only 2 of them that are actually the same style.
Of these up on the top shelf.
Yeah. So when you hunt, I can make hats in 5 to 6 different sizes, but for me it's. You have to have the exact same block to really kind of make the exact same hat. Even though I am shaping it by hand, that base shape matters.
Okay.
And so part of why the big reason why I'm doing this Kickstarter is because I need to. There's a guy that out in Colorado that will make replicas of these for me, like CNC replicas.
Okay.
So I am trying to raise funds so that I can take a couple of these blocks that I really love the styles and have them replicated in 9 different styles each.
Okay.
So I'm looking to get about 27 new blocks, which that will allow me to, produce a style of hat and say, well, I can do this now in 9 sizes and anything in between. So with a custom hat, you may be between size 7 1/8 and a 7 1/4. Well, that doesn't matter for me because I can sit there and use some other tools. which I didn't bring here, but banding blocks, and I can sit there and I can manipulate the felt to make it fit your exact head.
Wow.
So I'll be able to do everything in between those 9 sizes.
Dang. And let's see here. So this is another photo of kind of a finished product here.
Yeah. Now that is what I'm showing there is another tool that I'm looking to buy is called a hot foil stamping machine, and that allows you to actually, like when you look at the leathers, you'll see that gold line that's kind of embossed.
Oh yeah.
Right. Or when you look inside of your hat, all that stuff that's embossed on that leather, and even in the crown liner, it's all done with this foil stamping machine.
I see. Okay.
And I've got dies made. I just need to buy the actual printer, and my goal is to be able to purchase one with this Kickstarter, and I'll be able to imprint that logo. That's a mock-up, but that logo will be inside all the crown liners in gold.
Oh, very nice.
Which it does, that does nothing to it doesn't raise the quality of the hat in any way, but it looks cool.
Yeah, of course.
It adds class.
I think it does. I personally think it does because this hat, this hat right here. Yeah, it's a nice looking hat. You can look at all the details of the style and the designs and the accessories. But part of looking at this hat is like, dang, look at that gold print on the inside. How nice is that?
Exactly.
That's part of what's cool about this hat as well. It's definitely part of the character. Okay. So here's a few logos, some swag, some stickers, and that kind of cool stuff. And this is part of your Kickstarter. These are some of the things for people who are committing to the Kickstarter project.
Yeah, I'm having T-shirts made, and the T-shirts are coming in black and gray and blue, and white. The long sleeve tees will have the big logo on the back. And then you can get hoodies, and the hoodies will have that Kansas City Skyline logo over the breast and over the heart, and then you'll have a stylized hat down on the sleeve, on the right sleeve.
Okay.
Those are the different colors I'm currently offering in the campaign.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. So if you donate or pledge, I should say, pledge one of the larger dollar amounts.
Yeah, for the hats.
One of the deals is a hat being made for you, and so this is some of the colors that you're offering for that pledge.
And the way that'll work is when you pledge the hat, once it's successful, I can send out questionnaires, what they call surveys on Kickstarter.
Okay.
So I'll send out questionnaires to all the backers, and that's where you'll be able to tell me what head size you want. Or I have, if you already go on there on FAQs, I already have put some FAQs on how to measure your head. So you'll be able to give me a head size, like, well, I'm this many inches, and I'll know where to go from there.
Okay.
And it'll allow you to pick the color you want. It'll allow you to tell me what color ribbon you want. You'll be able to tell me how tall you want your crown, how wide you want your brim. I'm going to ask you all these questions.
Absolutely.
And maybe you don't know, so maybe you can just when we're communicating, you can say, well, here's a picture of what I want.
Yeah.
Can you do this?
Pretty much exactly what I did. I think that I've got this in my mind right now.
Yeah. So, but again, that's kind of how it goes. Working with a custom hat maker, they can kind of make anything. Now, I'm not offering any Western weighted felts. So if you want kind of what I'm making for you.
Yeah, you and I are doing a little bit of a special project.
Yeah, you're wanting a real wide brim Western hat, and you can't do a real wide brim like that with dress weight, because once it gets out too wide, it's too flimsy.
Yeah, it'll just kind of hang.
Yeah, so Western weight isn't offered in this particular.
Okay, so I'm gonna flip this around here so I can see myself and make sure that this looks too high. Okay, now we'll just finish up. Oh, one more thing. I've got this hat here. So right now, this is a summer hat. This is and actually, what, you and I were talking. Hand woven in Ecuador.
Yes.
Because I was telling you about, I can't remember what I was telling you, but you were telling me the story of how almost all straw hats come from Ecuador, or from Panama?
Panama.
They almost all come from Panama.
Or not Panama, sorry.
Or they all come from Ecuador, but they're called Panama hats.
Yes.
And what's the story behind that?
Straw hats, they're actually made out of a straw called tequila straw. Okay, and the tequila straw comes from Ecuador, and actually the finest hats are hand woven in a town called Montecristi there, and some of those hats you're looking at. I'm not joking. The Montecristi extra finos, you're looking at $20,000, $25,000 a hat.
What could make a hat that expensive?
It's because of how it's made. So those hats, they're made out of, they split the straw down really fine, and then they sort it, into the grades. And those straw hats, the straw is about as fine as a linen shirt.
Okay.
And it takes the person that sews it or that weaves it, it's hand woven, and it can take them 6 to 8 months to weave one hat.
Okay.
So that's why it comes with that crazy high price tag.
Wow. Okay. I guess that makes sense then if they're going to put that much detail into it.
Yes, and for a long time, they made a lot of those hats with slave labor in Ecuador, but the industry in Ecuador itself has really cracked down on that, and they have regulated the hat business, and they have with force have really gone in and tried to seek that out and eliminate it. So there's been an uptick in the price of straw hats. I don't make straw hats yet currently personally, but I just know this, that it's just they've gone up a little bit because people are having to pay more for the base product, which they should though.
Yeah, right. No hat should be made by slaves.
Yes.
Slaves really shouldn't
Anywhere,
exist.
yeah. So they should. So they're coming to the price where people are actually, because they're making money, which should happen. But anyway, to answer your original question, sorry, I went on a rabbit trail as I tend to do.
Heck no, that's the really cool thing about doing this podcast. It's not like, hey John, hurry up, we got a time to keep here, or like, hey John, watch your language. Like, we're on the internet. We could go for 5 hours if we really wanted to. So yeah, don't go on tangents all you want to.
All right, but it was 1800s, and it was when they were building the Panama Canal, and all the workers there were wearing hats from Ecuador. And the English, when they were over there, they saw all these migrant workers and all these hats, and they were buying hats and wearing them themselves. And so they just went back to England, and they were calling them Panama hats. That's really the Panama Canal, and the name just kind of stuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and actually, does it say? Yeah. Okay. So I look on the inside here. It says right here, genuine Panama hat, hand woven in Ecuador. So there you go.
And that means it's made out of real straw. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but when you go on certain websites, you'll see it. Oh, it's made out of Shantog straw, or something called Toyo straw. Something like those aren't actual real straws. What those are is high quality paper that has been turned into a pulp.
No kidding.
And then made into braids that they then add, stiffener onto and then weave.
Go figure.
And there's tons of hats from companies that we have already mentioned earlier in this podcast.
Okay, yeah.
$180 hats, and it's paper. It's not real straw.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So how can you as a consumer be sure that you're getting, this one does say genuine Panama hand woven in Ecuador.
If it says Panama hat means it's made out of tequila straw.
Okay, it does say material, 100% tequila straw.
Yeah, so that does mean it's made out of tequila straw.
Okay. I'm glad Gourin Brothers didn't pull a fast one on me and sell me some junk.
Yeah, and then there's a Milan straw. Milan straw is a real straw. That's I think a wheat-based straw.
Okay.
So there's some real straws, but I would say in today's market, the majority of straw and wool hats are all made out of paper straw and wool felt.
Okay. Okay. Now we'll start to wrap this thing up here. Let's look at this. I'm gonna put the camera right here. So this is basically the base layer of the custom hat that you're building me. Now this is going to have an extended top here and I guess I shouldn't say extended, but taller than normal, taller than average top, and a taller than normal brim. So as we're doing this, can you make this brim similar to this, where it's flat in the front and the back, and just a slight curve on the sides?
I could.
Okay.
To do that, what I'd do is I would take some steam, and that's kind of goes back to what I was going over. I would use steam, and I'm reticent to do it just a little bit because I don't have your particular block.
Right.
And I'd have to really do that. I'd have to set the brake line, and once the brake line's in there, it's in there.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to set that brake line really hard for here to iron this flat and then put the curve in there without doing it on your block, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just figure since we're sitting here, we can kind of goof around with it and kind of get a more solid idea.
Yeah, here.
And
I'd be willing to do that. I just don't want to do that to your hat, but I can do that. Let's do that to this hat if that's what you want to see.
Okay.
We can start doing this. If you have a tea kettle to bring to a boil, I can do that.
Give me a moment. I can do that. You know what? We don't have to do that. We won't go that far into it because I don't want. This is a good hat you're about to turn this into. So we won't do that just yet. I was just curious more, like with the hat that I've got there. After, I guess the next step would be getting, like you said, getting the block in the mail, and then after that you're going to shape it. Mm-hmm. And then after that, should I come over and we'll kind of figure out the exact brim and the band, the ribbon designs and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm thinking now I'm going to have to, there's a website and it's totally escaping me right now, but you know how they call them swatches? When you're maybe painting your house or you're designing a website or something and you want to get colors that all match. Mm-hmm. So I found a website where you can make swatches and you can start off by just finding the base color that you like. So I found one that's a camel brown like that. Mm-hmm. And it's got a lot of nice looking complementary colors that go along with it. So I think I'll bring a swatch or two over and we'll see if we can't find. What I'm thinking is going to do like a dark brown, kind of like the band on your hat. Mm-hmm. So it'll be kind of that camel tan with a dark brown a band, a ribbon around it, and yeah, I think that'll be pretty cool.
All right, yeah. So we can go over all the ribbon that I have, plus I have a contact that I can purchase some ribbon from, and I have swatches from them.
Oh, so, very cool.
So I can show you. Like I said, ribbon it's a hard thing to find, but I can show you what I got, and we can work on it. And if you don't like anything, I scoured the internet to find some of those, so I can always do it for anything else.
Heck yeah. Okay. Shoot, I'm just about out of ideas. That wasn't so far. This was a really awesome podcast. I haven't done anything like this where it was like very interactive, but you brought over like all the cool stuff, everything that really, really outlined how, it's not like you're just buying a hat and dressing it up and putting a big price tag or something. You're like legitimately making all these from scratch. That's super cool.
I really appreciate you having me over. This is, like I said at the start, I love hats, and I found this on accident, and I kept having fun, so that's why I kept pulling at the thread. And this process, no matter how tedious, I love watching this turn into this, and then even the next stage of when somebody takes it. I've had customers that have bought a hat, and then if they tell me, they'll be like, "Oh man, I really love it, but I found this, I added to it," and I always want them to send me a picture of it because I just love to see what it is they've done to it. Because there's some times where they'll choose something that I would have never thought of doing, or I wouldn't have put a feather there or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's just really cool for me to see how they've made it their own. I just love it.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up. One more time, I'm gonna show everybody. John has this Kickstarter going, folks. Go to Kickstarter or just type in. You can just type in this is what I did. Type in Kansas City Hatters and into Google. It will come up. You can see there he's got 3,000 to 15,000 with 12 days to go. This is all. It's not like he's going to take this out and party in Las Vegas. He's using this all to buy more materials and all of the tools to build this stuff. Also, you have a Facebook. Let me see. Let's see the Facebook page. That's another way people can like you, follow you, and also get in contact with you if they want a hat like this made for themselves or for like the boyfriend or a husband or something like that. So yeah, there's tons of stuff. This is one of a kind. Let's see. I think that's all I've really got for right now. Any shout outs you want to make? Any other info you want to drop on the people watching or listening?
Man, the company name's Kansas City Hatters. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Kansas City Hatters. I also have a business Snapchat under Life of a Hatter.
Snapchat, Life of a Hatter. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And you can contact me through any of those methods to talk about hats. I have this Kickstarter going. Please go support. I need the funds to, like we already talked about, kind of expand my tool inventory. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of people contact me, like local boutiques that are wanting to feature my hats, but I can't really do any of that until I could make one hat style in several styles. So there's there's a lot of people that love what I do and have contacted me about it, but I kind of need this extra little boost to take what I do to the next level.
And here's something for people to consider. If you want a hat like this, if you're thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you want a hat like this and you're thinking, I really want a hat, it would also be cool to support, go to the Kickstarter page. You can pledge X number of dollars for a hat, which will also get that Kickstarter goal reached, and it will secure a hat for you in the process, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's really it, folks. Check it out. John, again, thanks a ton for being here. We'll see if we can't get this Kickstarter finished in the next 12 days. I'll share some more on my Facebook page here in the coming week and a half. But if that's all you've got, that's all I've got right now. Thanks a ton for being here, and we'll end it right now.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.
I really appreciate it.
You betcha. Thanks, everybody. See ya.